And 9 and 10's David Leiden was in the courtroom as the verdict was read this afternoon. He joins us live outside the federal courthouse in Grand Rapids. David, take us inside the courtroom. What was it like the moment the verdict was read?
Xavier, good afternoon to you. Safe to say it was a stunned courtroom as the judge read those verdicts just a couple of hours ago. There were audible gasps from family members who had gathered to hear this verdict read. Daniel Harris's verdict was read first. He was facing the most charges of any of the four men who were on trial. And as soon as the judge read that he was not guilty on that kidnapping conspiracy charge, he began smiling, looking at his family, and then was one not guilty verdict after the other for Harris. And then he embraced his attorney. His family gave another gasp and they began crying. It was a similar reaction for Brandon Caserta when the judge read that he was not guilty of the kidnapping conspiracy charge. Both of those charges carried up to life in prison sentences. And tonight, it is our understanding both of those men have walked out of the federal courthouse here in Grand Rapids and are free men. It is also, ironically, Brandon Caserta's birthday. His attorney calling this verdict a very good birthday present. As for Adam Fox and Barry Croft, the jury was not able to reach a verdict on the charges both of those men were facing. They were facing the kidnapping conspiracy as well as weapons charges. So the judge declared a mistrial. It is now up to the prosecution here in Grand Rapids, the federal prosecutors, to decide if they will pursue a retrial. We heard from the attorney for Adam Fox. He said he's disappointed, but he feels they can do another trial. They can get a not guilty verdict, but they will have to wait and see if the prosecution refiles those charges. The prosecutor here in Grand Rapids did not commit to that when he talked to us this afternoon, only saying that he was disappointed in the verdict that the jury returned. There is a lot to break down. We are going to hear from those attorneys when you join us tonight on 9 and 10 News at 5 and 6, but an absolutely stunning day here in federal courts in Grand Rapids. And we are live in Grand Rapids this afternoon. David Leiden, 9 and 10 News.
Not guilty. That's the verdict for two of the men charged with plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. A jury found Daniel Harris and Brandon Caserta not guilty on all charges.
And they were hung on charges against Barry Croft and Adam Fox, so the judge declared a mistrial. 9 and 10's David Leiden joins us live from Grand Rapids. David, take us inside the courtroom during that verdict.
Xavier and Chelsea, good evening to you both. There were audible gasps inside the courtroom this afternoon as the judge read the verdicts, and then Brandon Caserta and Daniel Harris were free to go. Our understanding is they walked out of the courthouse. A jury found both of them not guilty of kidnapping conspiracy charges, and Harris was found not guilty of several weapons charges. The jury could not reach an agreement on a verdict in similar charges against Adam Fox and Barry Croft. That forced the judge to declare a mistrial. And just moments ago, the attorney here in Grand Rapids, the federal prosecutor, said he plans to refile those charges. Fox and Croft will face a retrial. We caught up with the attorney for Brandon Caserta shortly after the verdict was read. Take a listen at some of what he had to say.
They needed somebody to accompany Fox because Fox is a joke by himself, so they needed the Wolverine Watchman to give it credibility. That's why they were pulling them together. I'm very happy for Brandon. You know, I don't know what the government's going to do with Fox and Croft, but, you know, this, to me, this was a signal.
Worth noting, today was also Caserta's birthday. His attorney calling the not guilty verdict the best birthday present possible. The family of Daniel Harris was here. We did ask them if they wanted to talk. They had no comment, but said they were just going home for the time being. Tonight at 6, we will hear from the attorney for Adam Fox, who by all indications now faces a second trial. We are live tonight in downtown Grand Rapids. David Leiden, 9 and 10 News.
They got 0 convictions today.
Today, a jury acquitted 2 of the men charged with plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. But the outcome of the trial was more complicated than that. The jury found Brandon Caserta not guilty on kidnapping conspiracy charges and Daniel Harris not guilty on kidnapping conspiracy and weapons charges. The jury could not reach a verdict on weapons and kidnapping conspiracy charges against Adam Fox and Barry Croft, forcing the judge to declare a mistrial for them. Prosecutors argued the 4 men were planning to kidnap and possibly kill the governor over her response to the COVID-19 pandemic and had recordings of them doing so. But the defense successfully argued the alleged plot was fantastical, unrealistic, and pushed on them by federal agents. 9 and 10's David Leiden was in the courtroom as the verdict was read. He joins us live from Grand Rapids after speaking to several of the attorneys in this case. David?
Kevin, good evening. Daniel Harris smiled and embraced his attorney while his family could be heard gasping and crying as the judge read the verdicts. It was a similar reaction from Brandon Caserta and his family after nearly a full week of jury deliberations.
I think what the FBI did is unconscionable.
Brandon Caserta and Daniel Harris walked out of federal court free men Friday after a jury found both not guilty of plotting to kidnap the governor. Prosecutors presented hours of undercover recordings and testimony from undercover agents and informants, but in the end, the jury decided it wasn't enough for a guilty verdict.
We have the freedom to say that. If I don't like the governor and it's rough talk, I can do that in our country. That's what's beautiful about this country.
Caserta's attorney noting the verdict came on Caserta's birthday and says Caserta plans to just enjoy freedom right now for the first time since October of 2020.
He's just enjoying a walk down a sidewalk right now. I mean, that's a big deal when you've got 8 by 10. Birthday. It is his birthday. Best birthday present, imaginable. So I'm very happy for Brandon. I don't know what the government's going to do with Fox and Croft, but to me, this was a signal. A rogue FBI agent, trying to line his own pockets with his own cybersecurity company and then pushing the conspiracy that just never was.
Caserta joined Daniel Harris in walking after a not guilty verdict. On the other side, Adam Fox and Barry Croft face a mistrial after the jury could not agree on a verdict.
Adam is disappointed that he's going to be detained a bit longer, but we're waiting for a second trial, and we'll eventually get what we want to get out of this, which is the truth and the justice I think Adam is entitled to.
And prosecutors here in Grand Rapids, the federal prosecutors, issued a statement late this afternoon saying Barry Croft and Adam Fox now face a retrial after the jury was hung and could not agree on the charges or a verdict on the charges against those two men, and the judge was forced to declare a mistrial. We are live tonight in downtown Grand Rapids. David Leiden, 9 and 10 News.
You're looking live at the federal courthouse in Grand Rapids. It's now day 5 of jury deliberations in the federal trial of 4 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And it's been 31 days now since that trial began. Just in the last hour, we've learned that the jury has reached a verdict on some of the counts in this trial, but there is no announcement just yet. 4 men, Brandon Caserta, Adam Fox, Barry Croft, and Daniel Harris, are charged with plotting to kidnap the governor. All but Caserta face additional weapons charges. And as you saw just a moment ago, 9 and 10's David Leiden standing by in Grand Rapids. He is waiting on that verdict. David, how are things looking this afternoon?
Well, Bill, good afternoon. We really had not heard much from the jury today up until about an hour ago when they came in and told the judge where they were on the verdicts. They came in before that at 8:30 this morning and got some evidence before heading back into the deliberation room to keep trying to hammer out a verdict in this trial. That evidence they wanted to see, it was a bag of pennies that the prosecution says was used in shrapnel and some kind of experimental explosive device. That was, as we mentioned, at 8:30 this morning, and the jury has been working since then until about an hour ago when they came back into the courtroom and told the judge they have a decision on some of the verdicts but are deadlocked on the others. The judge now wants to keep them working through at least the lunch hour to try and see if they can get to a decision on the rest of those verdicts. All 4 men face up to life in prison in this case, but appeared incredibly relaxed this morning when they came into the courtroom. We also spoke this morning with a professor at Cooley Law School about what 5 days of jury deliberations says about where the jury is. Take a listen.
As long as that jury is continuing to ask for specific things, that's a really good indication that they're still working, that they're still trying to talk this through and reach a decision. And that's a good sign. That's what we want the jury to do. We want them to take it seriously, and we want them to examine the evidence and the testimony with care.
Now, there is one more factor to consider in this situation we're in right now. It is Friday, so the question is, how long does the jury want to go as we're heading into the weekend, and if they want to maybe take a pause and pick things back up on Monday, or if there is that added sense of urgency to try and get to a verdict so they wrap this thing up in 1 week. We will just have to wait and see, and we will be here in Grand Rapids. We'll bring you any updates as soon as we have word a final verdict is in. For now, we are live in downtown Grand Rapids this afternoon. David Leiden, 9 and 10 News.